My name is Emily Grant. I'm 35, and I never thought I'd be telling this story. At least, not like this. I've always been a pretty private person. I don't post much online, and I've never had a burning need to go viral. But something happened in my home, to my son, that changed everything. And if you're listening right now, maybe you're a parent. Maybe you're just someone who's lived through family betrayal. Or maybe you're someone trying to decide whether you should speak up about something that doesn't quite feel right. Let me be very clear. Silence protects the wrong people. So here I am, speaking, because the silence was eating me alive. My son's name is Noah. He's 9 years old. He loves watercolor painting, origami, and humming to himself while he builds cities out of Legos. He's thoughtful, gentle, and sensitive. The kind of kid who always asks how your day was before telling you about his own. And he came into my life through tragedy. Noah is my sister Laura's son. She and her husband died in a small plane crash when Noah was just 4. He survived by some miracle because they'd left him with a babysitter that day while they took a short flight for their anniversary. I was 27, newly divorced, still trying to figure out my career. I remember the night I got the call. I didn't sleep for 3 days. When I finally saw Noah again, quiet, dazed, clinging to a stuffed monkey with half the fur rubbed off, I knew. I just knew. I wasn't just going to raise him. I was going to love him like I carried him inside me myself. And I did. It wasn't easy. Grief doesn't evaporate just because you decide to step up. But over the years, we created something beautiful. A bond built on late-night lullabies, countless bedtime stories, and so many I love yous that I lost count. When Chris married me, my husband, Noah was 6. He proposed in the park with Noah beside us, holding a paper ring he'd made out of foil. I said yes, of course. We became a family. Not traditional by some standards, maybe, but whole. And then Zoe moved in. Zoe is Chris's younger sister. She's 26, loud, confident, razor smart, and she has what I can only describe as a magnetic energy. People either gravitate toward her or edge away slowly. I used to admire that about her, the way she could just take up space and make it hers. But I never quite trusted her. Still, when she lost her apartment and her job all in the same week, Chris didn't hesitate. "She can stay with us," he said, already texting her the door code. I hesitated. It's not that I didn't want to help. I just knew Zoe. She was chaos in heels, and our house, our family, thrived on calm. Noah especially. He needed predictability. He needed safety. But Chris was convinced it was temporary. "She just needs a few weeks to get back on her feet," he said. "It'll be good for her, and maybe good for Noah too, a chance to bond with his aunt." I wish I had trusted my gut. At first, things were fine. Zoe was charming. She helped clean. She offered to pick Noah up from school if I was running late. She bought him snacks. Ones I normally wouldn't buy, sure, but still, she was trying. At least, that's what I told myself. Then came the little things. One day, Noah asked if he could eat dinner in his room. That was unusual. We always eat together. "Why?" I asked gently. He shrugged. "I just don't want to talk too much tonight." Later that week, I overheard Zoe on the phone.
"Noah, he's a little off, I guess. Smart, but kind of odd. You know those kids that stare at bugs for like an hour?" She laughed. I stood frozen outside the pantry, pretending to look for rice, trying to steady my breathing. I told Chris that night. He frowned, but brushed it off. She was probably just joking. You know Zoe, she's sarcastic. But it wasn't just sarcasm. It was something else, something sharper. A few days later, I came home from work earlier than expected. Noah was in his room, quietly coloring. Zoe was in the kitchen watching a TikTok video with the volume up. Hey, I said casually, did you get Noah from school? She looked at me like I'd grown a second head. Yeah, duh. I walked him home like you asked. I nodded, glanced toward Noah's backpack on the floor. It was wet. Soaked, actually. His shoes, too. He'd walked home in the rain. Zoe never walked with him. I didn't say anything right then, but that night when Noah and I were brushing our teeth together, a little ritual we still shared, I asked gently, did Aunt Zoe walk you home today? He paused. No. She said she had a stomachache. I felt something tighten in my chest. Did she at least call me to tell me she couldn't? He shook his head. She hadn't even texted. If I hadn't come home early, I would never have known. The next day, I confronted her. She rolled her eyes. Relax, Emily. He's not 5. It's just a few blocks. I said, he's 9. And it was pouring rain. She shrugged. He's got legs, doesn't he? That was the beginning. The first moment I really saw it. The way she talked about him. Not to him. That was always sweet, sugary. But about him, that was different. She'd say things like, he's just not very social, huh? Or, don't you think he should be in a school with more support? Or, he gives off those gifted kid turned serial killer vibes sometimes. I don't know. And she always laughed afterward, like that made it okay. Chris kept brushing it off. She doesn't mean anything by it. She just doesn't know how to relate to kids. But Noah knew. Oh, he knew. He started withdrawing. He stopped singing to himself. He stopped asking Zoe to play board games. He started biting his nails again, a habit he'd kicked years ago. And then he stopped painting. That was the last straw. I remember the night I realized something was truly wrong. Not just frustrating or irritating, but wrong, in a way that made my stomach twist and my heart beat too fast. It was a Thursday. Chris was out of town for a work retreat, and I'd come home late from a marketing pitch that had run over. I texted Zoe that I was on my way, and she responded with a thumbs up emoji. No words, just okay. I didn't think much of it. When I got home, the house was quiet. Not cozy and calm quiet, the kind of quiet that makes the back of your neck tingle. Noah? I called. Nothing. I walked into the kitchen. The sink was full of dishes, the microwave door hanging slightly open. An empty cereal box lay on the floor like someone had kicked it in frustration. Zoe wasn't there. I checked the living room. The lights were off. The back door was unlocked. My chest tightened. Then I heard it, a sound from the garage, a small, echoing thud. Then again. I opened the door slowly and stepped inside. And there he was, Noah, my sweet, quiet, gentle Noah, sitting on the cold cement floor, surrounded by cardboard boxes, hugging his knees to his chest. His face was pale, and his eyes, they weren't red from crying. They were just hollow, like he'd already cried everything out and had nothing left. Noah? I whispered. He looked up. Mom? Oh my God! I dropped to my knees beside him. What are you doing out here? I was bad, he said flatly. Aunt Zoe said I needed to sit out here and think about how selfish I am.
I froze. She said what? He hesitated. I asked if we could have spaghetti because I didn't like the tuna casserole. She said that's what's wrong with kids today, always thinking they deserve options. She said you work too hard for me to act spoiled. Then she said I could have dinner when I wasn't being selfish. My heart cracked. And how long have you been out here? He looked at the clock on the wall. Since before it got dark, it was nearly 9 p.m. I wrapped my arms around him. Baby, you're not selfish. You're allowed to say what you like and don't like. You're allowed to eat spaghetti. You are allowed to be a kid. His lip quivered. I didn't mean to make her mad. I was just hungry. Zoe got home around 9:30 p.m. carrying takeout. Sorry, she said breezily as she kicked off her boots. Went to grab dinner with Rachel. Hope you and the kid didn't starve. I stood in the hallway, watching her drop her purse on the floor. Did you leave Noah in the garage? I asked. She looked up, startled. What? No. My voice rose. Don't lie to me, Zoe. He said you told him to sit out there and think about how selfish he is. She blinked, then shrugged. I didn't mean for him to stay that long. I thought he'd come back inside. He was being a brat, complaining about dinner, whining like he's 5. I was teaching him a lesson. You don't get to teach my son lessons, especially ones that involve isolating him in a freezing garage. Oh, come on, Emily. He's a weird kid. I'm sorry, but someone has to say it. He's always tiptoeing around like a mouse. He needs to toughen up. I didn't respond. I just walked upstairs and locked the door behind me. The next morning, I told Chris everything. I expected shock, anger, immediate action, but what I got was hesitation. She left him in the garage? He asked, blinking. On purpose? Yes, I hissed. Because he said he didn't like the food. She humiliated him. Chris, do you understand that? She's tearing him down little by little. He rubbed his temples. Okay, let me talk to her. No, I said, standing my ground. I don't want her here anymore. She has nowhere else to go. She had no business being here in the first place if this is how she treats our son. Chris hesitated. I'm not choosing between you and Noah, Emily. No, I interrupted, eyes blazing. You're choosing between Zoe and your family. And that was the line. The next few days were thick with tension. Zoe stayed out late, barely spoke to me. Noah avoided her entirely. I made excuses, play dates, errands, weekend visits to the library, anything to keep him away. Then Sunday came, and everything broke. It started innocently enough. I was folding laundry upstairs while Noah was painting in the living room. I heard Zoe come in, loud, laughing, chatting on speakerphone. Then a pause. Then raised voices. Then silence. I ran downstairs. Noah was standing by the couch, frozen. His painting had fallen to the floor, a soft watercolor sky, with a tree in the middle, slightly smeared now. His lip was trembling. Zoe stood across from him, arms crossed. He just yelled at me, she said, pointing, for telling him to clean up his mess. This kid needs serious help, Emily. Noah? I said gently. What happened? He didn't answer, just looked down, shoulders hunched. Zoe huffed dramatically. See? This is what I've been saying. He's emotionally unstable. He needs a therapist. I didn't say a word. Just walked to the hall closet, pulled out her duffel bag, and dropped it at her feet. What are you doing? She laughed. You're leaving. Excuse me? You're leaving, Zoe. Today. Chris came downstairs just in time to see the fallout. Emily, can we just... No,
I said flatly. She's leaving. She crossed the line again, and I will not let this house become a place Noah feels unsafe in. I won't let him think he's the problem. Zoe opened her mouth, then shut it. Chris didn't say a word. She packed her things in silence, and when the door slammed behind her, I knelt down beside Noah and held him tighter than I ever had before. The house felt different after she left. Not quieter, not calmer, just emptied. Like her energy still lingered in the corners, bitter and biting, echoing in places I didn't expect. I could see it in Noah too. He didn't ask where she'd gone. He didn't ask if she'd come back. He simply stayed close, shadowing me from room to room, watching my face like he was waiting for it to change, waiting for me to take it all back and say the danger wasn't really gone. For a while, I kept expecting it too. A knock on the door, a phone call, an apology, or worse, an accusation. But none came.
Chris barely spoke that evening. He moved through the house like a man watching a slow-motion car crash. Every so often, he'd glance toward the front door like maybe she'd reappear and tell us it had all been a joke. The silence between us stretched long and wide. Not angry silence, heaviness, grief in disguise. The first real conversation didn't happen until the third day. By then, I'd already arranged for Noah to start therapy. I wasn't waiting for permission. I wasn't waiting for agreement. Some things you just know are right. Chris sat across from me in the living room, hands clasped, staring at the floor like it might offer up an answer. I could feel the apology forming in his chest, pushing against his ribs, but it never made it to his mouth. What finally came out instead was a whisper of a question. Did she really treat him like that? I didn't answer, not with words. I just slid Noah's abandoned painting across the coffee table, the one she called a mess, the one that fell during their last argument. A tree, sky, light. And in the corner, just barely visible, two figures. One big, one small. Both standing under the same branch. Chris stared at it for a long time. I saw something change in his eyes. Guilt is a strange thing. It doesn't come crashing in like regret. It seeps through the cracks. It lingers. It makes you question not just what you missed, but why you missed it. Or worse, why you chose to. The days that followed were messy. Chris called Zoe. I didn't ask what they talked about, and he didn't offer. He walked away to make the call and returned with something hollow behind his eyes. Whatever was said hadn't brought peace, only weight. Noah's therapy sessions began quietly. He didn't say much at first. He'd draw or fidget or talk about school in vague terms. The therapist, a calm middle-aged woman named Dr. Ellis, said that was normal. Children don't always name their pain right away. Sometimes they speak in shapes, in silence. At home, I focused on rebuilding routine. Normalcy was the balm no one needed most. Breakfast at the table, afternoons in the sun, quiet bedtime stories with the lights low and the blankets tucked tight. It was working, slowly. He started humming again, just under his breath. He took his paints back out. He began asking questions again, ones that started with what if instead of why. That was progress. But I couldn't shake the question that kept surfacing in my own mind. Why didn't I act sooner? The answer was layered. Because I wanted to believe the best in people. Because confrontation is exhausting. Because family ties come with invisible strings, guilt, loyalty, expectation. Because part of me feared being too sensitive or too dramatic. Because Chris wanted to believe his sister could be good.
But mostly because I didn't want Noah to feel like our home could fracture that easily. In protecting the idea of stability, I had let someone chip away at his sense of safety. I had failed him in small and slow increments. I wouldn't do it again. One afternoon, several weeks after Zoe left, Chris brought home a book from the library. It was about neurodivergent children, specifically ones who didn't fit inside neat, tidy boxes. He left it on the kitchen counter. No words, just a gesture. That was his way of apologizing. Not loud, not theatrical, quiet, focused, tentative. I noticed the change in how he spoke to Noah, too. Less correction, more curiosity. He started asking Noah to teach him things, how to fold origami, how to mix colors, not in a performative way, in a way that said, I want to see the world the way you do. It was slow, but it was real. Then Zoe texted. Just one line. Tell Noah I'm sorry. It wasn't enough. It wasn't close to enough, but I didn't ignore it. I showed it to Noah and let him decide what to do with it. He stared at the screen for a while, then asked if he could paint. That night, he gave me a picture, a bridge, halfway built, stretching across water that glittered in the moonlight. On one side stood a small figure with a lantern. The other was empty. It didn't need explanation. We didn't respond to the message. Not because forgiveness wasn't possible, but because accountability had to come first. And accountability doesn't live in a single sentence. Zoe would have to do more than whisper regret into a screen. She'd have to name the harm, not just tiptoe around it. Chris understood that now, too. Weeks turned into months. The air in our home began to change again. Noah laughed more. He painted more. He didn't flinch when I left the room. He didn't watch the door like he was waiting for a storm to return. Therapy helped, but love helped more. Consistent, daily, unshaken love. The kind that says, you are not a problem to solve. You are a person to protect. One night, as I tucked him in, he asked if Zoe would come back. The question didn't sing, not like before. I told him the truth, that I didn't know, that it would depend on whether she learned how to treat people with kindness, that some people take a long time to learn, that it wasn't his job to wait for her. He nodded, thoughtful, then curled into his blanket and fell asleep, peacefully, for the first time in a long time. We didn't dwell. After Zoe left, we didn't hold family meetings or dissect the drama over dinner. We got up the next day, made waffles, packed lunches, and went on with our lives. I focused on systems. Noah got a new daily planner, a visual schedule he helped build. Mornings became predictable. His therapist suggested structured choices to rebuild agency. Do you want to walk or scooter to school today? Chicken or pasta for lunch? We made room for yes, and space for no. Chris started doing school drop-offs twice a week, unprompted. No last-minute excuses, no reminders. He also signed up for the parent volunteer roster at the art show. Noah didn't say much when he saw his dad unpacking folding chairs in the auditorium, but he looked different, taller somehow. In the evenings, we added a new ritual, 20 minutes of unwind time after homework where Noah could lead. Some days we played Uno. Other days we sat side by side and didn't speak. He was in control of the quiet now, not stuck inside it. Chris and I had practical talks, short and direct. We agreed on boundaries. Zoe wouldn't return to the house without a joint decision. No unsupervised contact. Any future interaction would be discussed with Noah first. I wrote those rules down, posted them on the inside of the kitchen cabinet. Not for show, for accountability. We also bought a Ring camera system. It wasn't paranoia. It was protection, for Noah and for ourselves. We stopped apologizing for being careful. Then Zoe emailed. A long message, no passive voice. She admitted to dismissing Noah's feelings, to isolating him, to labeling him as difficult because she didn't understand him. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She asked for instruction. What could she do to earn trust? I printed the email, set it aside for 3 days. When I finally brought it to Noah, I gave him the summary. No adjectives, no framing. He thought about it for a minute, then said he wanted to write back. His email was 3 sentences long. He said he accepted her apology. He said he didn't want her to visit yet. He said he still liked his painting. It was his way of setting the terms. She replied within a day. That's fair. Thank you for trusting me with that answer. Summer came. We took a trip. Not far. Just a coastal town a few hours away. No itinerary, just beach walks, library stops, and grilled cheese dinners at the same tiny cafe every night. Noah brought a sketchbook instead of a tablet. One morning, I found him drawing alone outside the motel room. A boat, a girl in the boat, and a boy standing on the dock waving. It wasn't sad, it was just motion. A scene with space in it. I didn't ask what it meant. Later that day, he asked to send Zoe a picture of the drawing. I said yes. She replied with a picture of her own, her hands holding a blank journal, captioned, "Starting fresh." Back home, we stayed cautious. Zoe started therapy, voluntarily. Dr. Ellis helped us coordinate a future plan. Limited contact, gradual re-entry, no pressure. The first video call happened 2 months later. Chris sat beside Noah the whole time. Zoe stayed soft-spoken. She didn't ask questions about how things used to be. She asked about Noah's latest book. He answered plainly, then said he needed to get back to his puzzle. That was it. No drama, just a quiet test. And it passed. A few weeks later, another call. Then a birthday card. Then a video Noah sent on his own. Him showing Zoe how to make paper cranes. Small actions, low stakes, no expectations. And it worked. By fall, Zoe asked to attend the school's family night. Noah agreed on 2 conditions. She had to bring art supplies for the kids' table, and she couldn't ask to stay after. She showed up early. She brought a full tote of materials. She helped clean up after. When she left, she didn't hug Noah. She waved. He waved back. We never had a big reconciliation moment, no dramatic apology, no hug in the rain, just time. Clear rules, repeated choices. Respect wasn't declared, it was demonstrated. Noah still asks questions, he still double-checks plans, but he's not afraid anymore. He laughs with his whole body again. Chris shows up, reliably now. No hesitation. And me? I learned to stop asking for permission to protect my child. I do it instinctively now, without guilt.
A year passed. The house changed, but not in obvious ways. Nothing was remodeled. No new routines announced themselves with fanfare. But things felt settled, like we had cleared out something heavy and left space for lighter air. Noah was 10 now, taller, more expressive, still sensitive, still thoughtful, but different too. He didn't ask permission to draw anymore. He just did. He spoke up when he didn't want to do something, even if it disappointed someone. And he rarely apologized for being himself. Therapy continued, though it shifted. Less focus on repair, more on confidence, self-image, building forward. Dr. Ellis encouraged him to start journaling privately. He filled 4 notebooks in 6 months. He never showed them to us. That was the point. Chris changed too. Not dramatically, just steadily. He made fewer excuses for people. He stopped defending discomfort as normal family stuff. When his parents commented once about boys being too emotional these days, he didn't stay silent. He didn't raise his voice either. He just said, "Not in this house," and changed the subject. That was enough. He and Noah started working on a shared project, a wooden model of a lighthouse. It wasn't perfect. They glued the wrong parts together at one point and had to start over, but they didn't quit. They kept showing up, together. Sometimes repair looks like wood shavings and shared mistakes. Zoe reached out once a month, sometimes with a video, sometimes with a letter. She never asked to visit, never assumed access. She started sending Noah supplies instead of gifts: watercolors, journals, an origami set. Once she mailed him a book she said helped her understand what she'd done wrong. No note inside, just the title underlined. Listen first. Noah wrote her a letter that spring. 4 lines. He said he liked the book. He said he still remembered the garage, but he didn't feel scared anymore. That letter wasn't mailed. It was emailed, on his own terms. She replied the same day. 2 lines. "Thank you for trusting me with that memory. I still carry it. I should." There was no pressure to say more. We did see her in person again. It was Noah's school art fair. She asked permission first, not from me, but from Noah directly. He said yes. She came early, brought snacks, helped set up the tables. She didn't hover near Noah's display. She let him take the lead. When he walked her over to show her his newest piece, a landscape of a storm clearing over a hill, she looked at it carefully. Then she nodded once. No comments about talent, no attempt to read into the meaning. Just attention. Presence. Noah moved on to the next table without hesitation. That was a bigger win than any framed certificate. Later that night, Noah asked if she could come for lunch sometime. Nothing big, just sandwiches at the park. We said yes. We scheduled it carefully. No surprises, clear end time. The lunch happened 2 weeks later. They played cards. They didn't talk about the past. They didn't need to. At one point, Zoe let him win. He caught it, called her out on it. She smiled and reshuffled the deck. Progress isn't loud. We still had boundaries. Zoe still didn't stay over, still didn't babysit, but we no longer treated her like a threat. She'd earned a place. Not a full return, not unconditional trust, but a place. Because she'd shown up consistently, because she didn't push, because she learned. More importantly, because we had changed. Our family operated differently now. We didn't let silence take root. We didn't excuse hurt as misunderstanding. And we didn't teach Noah that forgiveness meant forgetting. We taught him that safety is a right, that his voice matters, that people can change, but they have to prove it. Noah's almost 11 now. He still draws, still hums when he's happy, still builds tiny paper boats and lets them float in the bathtub. He still remembers what happened, but he no longer carries it like a bruise. He carries it like a scar, healed over, part of his skin, not defining him, but never erased. And that's okay. That's honest. If you've made it this far, thank you. Maybe you listened because you've been in a situation like ours, or maybe you're in one right now, watching someone you love be slowly chipped away by people who should have protected them. Let me tell you what I've learned. You don't have to wait for a line to be crossed so loudly it echoes. The little signs, the quiet comments, the subtle exclusions, and the growing silence in your child, those are enough. You're not overreacting when you respond to what your gut already knows. I waited longer than I should have. I wanted to believe that family meant safety by default, but it doesn't.
Family isn't a pass. It's not immunity. It's not an excuse. Family is how you show up, how you repair, how you protect the people who depend on you. And protection doesn't always look like confrontation. Sometimes it looks like boundaries, like walking away, like locking a door, not out of punishment, but out of care. For a long time, I thought keeping the peace was the same as keeping Noah safe. Now, I know the difference. We didn't fix everything overnight. We didn't get a fairy tale ending, but we built something stronger than that, something earned. My son is whole. He knows he's worthy. He knows that home means safety. He knows his voice matters, even when it's quiet. And that's more than enough. So if you're watching this and wondering whether it's time to draw a line, it probably is. Draw it. Hold it. And if people cross it, don't apologize for stepping back. Your job isn't to protect their comfort, it's to protect your child. I hope our story gave you something, strength, clarity, or just a moment of recognition. If it did, feel free to share your own story in the comments. You're not alone. And if you'd like more stories about family, healing, and doing what's right, even when it's hard, please subscribe. There's more to come. Thanks for being here. And remember, love is not just a feeling, it's a choice every day.